Ms. Brighty,
Here.
Mr. Liggett,
Here.
Mrs. Lofton,
Here.
Mr. McGuire,
Here.
Mr. McKinney, Dr. Weston,
Here.
Ms. Westfall,
Here.
Mr. Williams, and Ms. White.
Here. Thank you so much. Oh, we are at 1.03 and 1.04, Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silent reflection.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all so much. 1.05 is the reading of the mission statement. Ms. Westfall, would you mind?
Thank you, Ms. White. The mission of the Perkiomen Valley School District is to cultivate an inclusive community of learners empowered to grow intellectually, socially, and emotionally. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. 1.06, approval of the agenda as presented. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion by Mr. McKinney and a second by Dr. Weston. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. 1.07 is our special recognition for next week, which will be our friends from the music department. And 1.08 is comments on any topic. The board affords the community the opportunity to comment on any topic for a duration of 3 minutes. Please state your name and municipality, and I open the floor. Okay, seeing none, we will move on to section 2, reports and presentations. Student liaisons report, Mr. Lees and Mr. Rapp.
All right. Good evening. So first, we'd like to congratulate the robotics team on their hard work throughout the year and winning the very first Mid-Atlantic District Ben Salem event.
We'd also like to recognize the cast and crew of the high school musical Something Rotten and congratulate them on a fantastic performance.
And then finally, we want to wish all attending juniors a great time at junior prom and thank all of the organizers.
Thank you both so much. 2.02, President's Report. I would like to just, for the record, inform the community that we did finish the first round of superintendent candidate interviews. We had a really robust 2-day session of first round interviews, and 3 candidates have been selected to move on to the second round, and those interviews will take place on the 14th. And so we will have more information once that happens. So I want to thank everyone for their time and their energy, especially for staff and stakeholders for contributing their candid feedback. And it was very helpful to the board as a whole to have that perspective. So with that, 2.03, Superintendent's Report, Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Ms. White. So this evening I have a few topics that I'd like to go through. Again, I will emphasize our mission statement as a school district in cultivating those inclusive school communities, empowering our students as learners. Our comprehensive plan grounds us in some of the things that we think about, the recommendations that we bring forward to you. It is these 4 overarching goals that continue to guide our work and our shared beliefs, and you'll see those connected to some of the points of interest that I'll bring out tonight. So number 1, I'd like to also recognize the musicals. And between last year and this year, I just have to compliment the directors, the cast, and the crews of each of the 3 musicals. So I'll start with East. It was Footloose. Mr. DeAndrea, the principal at East, is here. And the way that the director in the past several years has invited the students to really be more active on stage with dancing along with singing has just been impressive and really entertaining. And the students did a great job. You can see that's a great photo. Wizard of Oz came next out at West, and what I noted here in knowing some of these students is just how they've grown over their years in middle school and the courage that they demonstrate in getting on stage, singing solos, dancing in front of a full auditorium. Really, just wonderful performance. And then lastly, Something Rotten. I also was able to attend that. Really funny and quite entertaining. Again, lots of great dancing. I asked Mr. Mallitz if he taught the students how to tap dance. He said no, but the choreographer did. So these students were not tap dancers, but they were tap dancing, and it was really impressive. So 3 wonderful shows, and I compliment again, the directors, the cast, and the crew. Great job. We had Senator Muth visit Skippack Elementary School. So several years ago now, Senator Muth advocated for funds to support implementation of resources and instructional approaches, professional learning to support structured literacy. And some of the strategies that we've learned through research really support the development of our early learners and our early readers with literacy skills. So Senator Muth came out to Skippack Elementary to really observe some of the reading instruction in action with some of the resources that the grant funds supported. We received, as one of 14 school districts in Chester County, Montgomery County, and Berks counties, those are the districts that at the time Senator Muth's representation covered. That's changed now since the time of the grant. We were awarded $155,000 to support the implementation of some of the resources. And at one point, we were in the faculty dining room where there are shelves of a particular resource, geodes, that we have invested in on behalf of our students and our staff to help develop those literacy skills. So it was really nice that Senator Muth and her assistant took the time to visit Skippack Elementary. In the top picture there, you see the building principal, Mrs. Nassoy, with Mrs. Haranko on the far left, Senator Muth, Mrs. Nassoy, and then her reading specialist there at Skippack, Mrs. Finlayson. Mrs. Mann was one of the teachers whose classroom we visited, and then the reading specialist, Ms. DeMarco. And they did a great job showcasing all that's happening in the area of reading and literacy in the building. So very much appreciated Senator Muth taking the time to visit. Speaking of politics and representation, the annual legislative breakfast was also held recently on March 27th. Thank you, Mr. McKinney, for attending. It's at a very difficult time. It's a Friday morning. It's at 8 o'clock. We had some representation. Mr. Weaver, Dr. Nicholson, and myself attended along with Mr. McKinney, and we had student representatives there this year. The focus was really on school facilities this year, and not only the repair and the upkeep of facilities, but also on the functional capacity of facilities. That takes us back to some conversations last year that, as illogical as it sounded, we're declining in enrollments, but our buildings are full. That didn't make sense to lots of us when we were a part of those conversations. However, the ways that we deliver service today, the needs of our students as they present to us today are very different. And that emerged as a theme during the legislative breakfast. So we are not the only district struggling with that. Functional capacity and facilities really limiting some of what we believe we could do that's better for students or would offer them a stronger service. So some interesting conversation during those meetings. I want to just call out too that 2 of our high school students were there and spoke. So it was really nice to have student voice at the podium. We had David and Trey, who are high school students here. They did a great job talking about how the learning environment has changed in recent years and that schools are struggling to keep up with that. And it's important that we think about that too as we consider the needs of our facilities. So, good meeting. And there you see on the right the PV team that was present. Thanks again for all who attended. let's transition to a topic that is becoming more and more near and dear to our heart, and that's really full-day kindergarten and some of the things that we're doing to support our students there. Next year, or the upcoming school year, excuse me, the district is planning a different start for our kindergarten students. You've been informed of this in a meeting earlier. I want to review it and have included in my slides here the timeline. So the start for our full-day kindergarten students coming in will look a little different in the upcoming year than it has in years past. It's a soft start. And it will provide them an opportunity to experience full-day kindergarten and for our teachers to get to know them a little bit better as learners. So they will have a touch point with each of the kindergarten teachers in their school building. They'll rotate through. There's a schedule that's been developed. And then our teachers will organize those classes on that Thursday, the first week of school. And kindergarten students will stay home. They will have that day off so that their teachers can really dedicate themselves to creating as balanced classes as possible based on the information they have at the time. And then teacher assignments will be shared in parent view that evening so that going into the weekend, our parents will know who their child's kindergarten teacher will be for the year. That's always something that our parents and our students really look forward to. So, excited about this new start. If you'd like more information about this, for those of you on the board or those in the public who may be paying attention this evening, we do have a website or a web page as part of our website that shares some additional detailed information about full-day kindergarten. I've linked it here. This is what that web page looks like. And then just some general information about the life of a kindergartner when they participate in full-day kindergarten here in the district. So I very much appreciate the team that has developed this plan under the leadership really of Mrs. Chris Squeary. She's one of our instructional coaches, focuses on early learners, and our principals, our elementary principals, are very supportive of the effort. So thank you as a board for supporting this very different start to the school year for our students, but one that we believe will in turn set them up for success. And lastly, this is a business item, but I just want to get it out there on the record. We heard for quite a while, Board Docs wasn't going away. Board Docs isn't going away. We're not going to move away from Board Docs. And we just learned we're moving away from Board Docs. It's going away. So that will be a change, not only for us around the table or those of you that remain seated around this table moving forward, but also for our public that pays attention and accesses information through our Board Doc system. It is shifting to a platform they refer to as Keystone Agenda, and it also it's based on the board book platform. Mrs. Reefer is diving into the webinars and the information that PSBA, the organization that provides access to this platform for school districts in Pennsylvania, she's learning more about it, and as we learn more, we will share it with all of you and our public. We need a communication plan to help our public realize this shift, because right now we have Board Docs on our website that then, as you click on that link, takes you to the Board Docs platform. That will change after June 30th. So we have some legwork to do. Mrs. Reefer and I are going to partner on that and then keep you posted, as well as figuring out how do we communicate this information to our community so that it makes sense and nobody is really surprised by it, but they're informed. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Russell. Does anyone have any questions with regard to the superintendent's report?
Just a real quick one. What is the cause of the deprecation of Board Docs? Is the vendor going away? Is what actually necessitated the change?
That's a really good question. I don't know that I know. I don't have a good answer for that, honestly.
PSBA hasn't really given an answer to that. Board Docs is still going to be active.
You have to turn your microphone on, Mrs. Reefer. I'm sorry.
My understanding is that Board Docs will still be active. It'll still be a platform that'll be available for people to use. But PSBA will no longer be backing it or recommending it. They're going to move everything over to Keystone Agenda. The one thing that they did say was that they're implying there's going to be a cost difference lower but which I don't know, what that means, but that's the one thing that they said they'll be able to do is offer it at a smaller price point. They haven't said much more than that. There hasn't been a ton of information given to any of us.
No, and Mrs. Young also works with other school districts. That seems to be the consistent message. So I don't know if there is a deeper reason for why they're not supporting board docs anymore. We haven't learned that or heard that yet. It's a good question.
And I guess it's part, as you develop and get information to share, Mrs. Reefer, the migration of all of our historical data will go directly in, or will we have to manage out of two systems?
On the webinar that I took a part in, they said they were going to help us with the transition of migration from board docs to the new platform, that they
Okay.
will help migrate all that information over.
Okay.
That it was very top level,
Sure.
but
That was the answer you were given, top level. I guess I'm just wondering if Mr. Ganesh then
Yeah.
should maybe be looped in on some of
He-
that.
He's
He
looped.
has been, okay.
He's
nice.
looped, and in
Okay.
fact, he just gave us a thumbs up. We've
Okay.
had a conversation about this because I'm a little nervous about that.
Well,
With
I have
so little
confidence that our
information.
district
Oh,
won't
yeah,
drop
but-
the ball on information. It seems like that's a liability for some other places that don't have Mr. Ganesh.
Yeah, and it is certainly something that we've had some conversations around because I'm a little nervous about all of the information coming over and syncing seamlessly into a new platform or within a new system. So he's on it, and if we have to do some manual work, then we have to do some manual work, but he feels pretty confident we can get it done.
Great.
He feels very confident we can get it done.
He did it already. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, very good.
Stop talking, Barb.
All right, yeah. All right, so 2.04, Solicitors Report, Ms. Young.
Thank you, Madam President. No report this evening.
Thank you so much. And that moves us to 2.05, Board and District Committee Reports. Board and District Committees this month. We have our Finance update. Finance Committee of the Whole will present this evening with Mr. Weaver. That's today, April 7th. We have Policy next week prior to our board meeting at 6 p.m. Negotiations actually is scheduled on the calendar to meet 3 times this month, on the 8th, the 9th, and the 30th. Our team knows about that, those that are participating. We have Education Committee of the Whole next Thursday, which is April 16th. We have Safety and Operations, everyone's favorite committee, on April 23rd, third week. We have Wellness meets at 6 p.m. this month on April 16th, and that is immediately prior to the Education Committee of the Whole. We have Central PV Regional Planning. I know that Mrs. Lofton has been eagerly awaiting that meeting for 4/20. Education Foundation does not meet this month. They will meet in May. MCIU Board, Mr. Liggett will meet with those folks on April 22nd. And then the JOC with Mr. Williams and Mr. McKinney will meet on April 20th. Does anyone have anything to add?
Ms. White, I do. As you know, I serve as the Perkiomen Valley's representative to the MCIU, and unfortunately, MCIU has made the news of late. So I just wanted to just briefly address the board in public and the public that may be listening here. The MCIU continues to do the valuable services that it always has, giving us to our youngest and sometimes our most vulnerable learners. They continue to partner with us in providing an education to the youth in the Southeast Youth Center on the campus of Phoenix. The math group there, called the Sharks, took the first place in nationals for our county, which is a wonderful thing that these students have done. The work of the MCIU is important, continues, and they serve us as a district and the community as a whole in so many ways. And it is just, it's a shame that this bit of news has put a little bit of a stain on that. I would just like to let the board know that I am there to represent us and to make sure that the MCIU will continue to deliver the services to the public and to the community around us in the way that it has historically. To address the issues that came up with the MCIU, though, the board of the MCIU and with the leadership of the president, Dr. Wright, is forming an ad hoc committee to look into what has happened and to get policies and procedures down in such a way that there's public accountability and transparency when decisions are being made that are travel related. And the rest of the leadership team of the MCIU have my confidence, and I hope that they have yours as well, because the job that they're doing there is amazing. And I am proud at this moment to be a member of their board. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liggett, for the update. Does anyone else have anything to offer board and district committees? Okay, excellent. So we will move on to section 3, which is the consent agenda. The consent agenda is as presented right now with items on consent. We will continue to build that this evening. Moving on, does anyone have any comments or questions about the consent agenda as built so far? Wonderful. Section 4, Mr. McKinney, education.
Thank you, Ms. White. I will turn to Dr. Nicholson to see him discuss the educational updates.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. I appreciate it. I do have a couple of items to discuss this evening, and then I'll actually be turning the presentation over to Ms. Aducci and her team to give an annual report on special education services within the district. So this evening, I want to cover some middle school programming work, specifically in the special areas department. That has been work that's been ongoing actually since before I even joined the district in January. The team at both Middle School East, Middle School West, along with curriculum and instruction, have been working hard at looking at the needs of students today and how we can ensure that they're getting what they need moving forward and what that can look like in a bit of a streamlined specials programming. Also, just going to briefly touch on enrollment and staffing, and I won't lead you on too much. There's going to be a very robust update at Education Committee of the Whole next week, and I'll outline that briefly later on. And then again, I mentioned that Ms. Aducci and her team will be coming up to the podium to talk a little bit about special education programming within the district. So to get started, middle school programming, as I said, special area structure is something that's been worked on for the last couple of months. We've really been looking at ways that we can streamline the structure of our specials at the middle level. Currently, there are 5 different scheduling models. There are vectors, which are, I believe, 36 days. There are trimesters, which are 60 days. Marking periods, which are 45. Semesters are 90, but meet every other day. And then year-long, which meet every other day year-long. So it's very confusing. It's something that has evolved to this point over time. And the proposal moving forward into 26-27 is really to eliminate the vectors and the trimesters and streamline how that looks. One of the changes that we also looked at with streamlining it is currently health replaces phys ed for one marking period. So currently health and phys ed meets every other day for the entirety of the year. Students receive 90 days of health and PE, but for one of those marking periods, the PE teacher takes their classes to health. We're proposing that integration of health and PE, that health would be 1 day per cycle. So you would have health, you would have PE, health, PE for the entirety of the year. Really what we would like to do here is we would see that 7 days of additional health would be added for each school year. But we also know that many of our students don't move, they're not physically active other than PE class. So this would eliminate that 45-day period during the school year where some of our middle school students only have health and no physical activity. Moving a little bit further along here, as far as 6th and 7th grade, the vectors that we currently have, which I said are about 36 days, we are looking to transition them to marking period special area classes. That would include art, music, FCS, Family Consumer Science, and Tech Ed. In sixth grade, that's digital literacy. Meet every other day for the 45-day marking period. Tech Ed A and Tech Ed B in seventh grade would be streamlined and condensed into one course for seventh grade. It would be a Tech Ed course that would take the best of the curriculum, streamline that, and make sure that we're hitting those STEEL standards in the Tech Ed courses. World language will continue to meet every other day, alternating with health and PE in student schedules in both sixth and seventh grade. In sixth grade, those languages are, by marking period, they get a bit of an introduction to French, to Spanish, to digital literacy, and to tech and innovation. Digital literacy is something that you'll see in the next slide. Actually, is something we're looking to expand in middle school. This would take it from, I believe, what was, and Mr. DeAndre, you'll have to help me here. How many times is digital literacy currently meeting? A marking period. So this would still be, this would be every other day for a marking period. So it would reduce it a little bit in sixth grade. We'd be looking to increase it in eighth grade with a new course. Year-long French, Spanish, or tech and innovation in seventh grade. So in seventh grade, going from the exploratory languages to something of student choice, where they can pick French, they can pick Spanish, or tech and innovation. When we talk about tech and innovation, I mentioned that our Tech Ed courses are more of the STEEL standard strain of our technology side of the house. Tech and innovation is more of the language of computers. So sixth grade, it begins with kind of introduction to how computers work, gets more into coding and more into computer science as we move along from seventh to eighth grade. In eighth grade, again, we're transitioning away from the vectors to marking period special area classes, art, music, FCS, and Tech Ed. Sixth grade, again, oh, sorry, hold on. I was on the wrong slide. Transition from 36-day vectors to semester special area classes. So art, FCS, Tech Ed, and a new digital literacy 8 course would meet every other day for a semester. So again, 45 classes, alternating every day, every other day for 90 days. This new digital literacy course is something that the team feels strongly about. When the sixth grade digital literacy course was introduced, I believe it was 2017, 2018 school year, I think we can all agree in the last 9 years that digital literacy, digital wellness has become a hot topic. It's something that has been a consistent conversation at wellness committee meetings over the last few months, and something we really feel we need to expose students to at a deeper level. So as I said, currently, digital literacy in sixth grade would be reduced by a few classes, but we would be increasing by 45 class periods in eighth grade with this new course to be developed yet. Music ensemble students in eighth grade would still have a choice regarding the specials as they do now. A student that's in one music ensemble would choose from 2 other courses, and one that's in 2 would choose 1 other course. And then again, as in seventh grade, our Tech Ed A and Tech Ed B in eighth grade would be streamlined and condensed into 1 course for eighth graders. World language, year-long, every other day, alternating with health and PE again, French, Spanish, and tech and innovation, similar to the seventh grade model. So this is just a sample schedule. I know the words can be confusing. I'm a visual learner, so for those of you that are visual as I am, you can see at the top is really the non-language line, the choices or the courses that students would have each year. Sixth grade on the left in yellow, seventh grade in the middle in green, and eighth grade in the right, on the right in blue. At the bottom is that language line. So you can see in sixth grade, Spanish, French, digital lit, and computer would be 22.5 days on average for each of those 4, alternating with health and PE. In seventh grade, again, students pick Spanish, French, or tech and innovation. And then in eighth grade, again, a pick of Spanish, French, or tech and innovation, alternating with health and PE, with that caveat again, that health and PE would alternate. 1 out of every 6 days would be health, 2 out of every 6 days would be PE. So as far as the takeaways from all this, and again, this has been a couple-month process being worked here, really looking to streamline. As I'm sure you can imagine, sixth graders that are on trimesters, vectors, marking periods, and every other day rotations can often get confused by what that looks like. This would really streamline the days, streamline what's happening there. Increase meeting time for health during all 3 years, and I would add to that that students would also have some physical activity the entire year round rather than shutting PE down for a marking period. development and implementation of that Digital Literacy 8 course for the next school year. Something that we are waiting to start developing, but we're very eager to increase digital literacy, digital wellness amongst our students in today's day and age. And then again, the takeaway is the condensation of Tech Ed 7 and 8A and 7 and 8B into just one unified 7 and 8 course. Again, taking kind of the best from that Steels aligned coursework and making sure our 7th and 8th graders are exposed to those Steel standards through those courses. Before I move forward, I know that was a lot. Are there any questions? Probably better to field questions now than wait.
Thank you, Dr. Nicholson. I was just about to ask, does anyone have anything that they would like to ask? Mr. Williams.
Yep. Looks good, but condensing is obviously taking away. So who decides what's the most important in Tech Ed when it's important right now? All aspects of all aspects of it are important right now. So why do we have to lose parts of the subject? And then who decides what's the important parts of the subject?
Sure, great question. I know Mr. Weir is sitting in the audience tonight. He is one of our Tech Ed teachers, so he'll certainly be an integral part of that, as will Mr. Storm, our department chair. And they've already been part of some conversation about this. They are understanding and they know that this is the direction we've been heading. So there will be a committee that's formed. Dr. Honderhan, I'm sure myself, Mr. Weir will be part of that. Really, I believe what it comes down to is my understanding is that the second Tech Ed course was added at a time and in a place where enrollment was up across all of our schools. We needed to add some extra specials, and at that point, STEM was kind of the burgeoning and budding subject area. Not that it's any less important with Steels. However, some of those Steel standards are covered in science today, and I know Mr. Weir is really interested in how that will look and what those the best of the best will be that really hits the Steel standards and exposes students to what they need moving forward.
The only other thing I would offer, Mr. Williams, is that there is also, there have been some questions that have emerged from parents, even on the part of our teachers, about digital literacy on the part of our students, and students understanding the ethics of using the technology that we put in front of them, that we hand them every day. And we are also realizing that some of our students unfortunately make choices that I don't think they realize can get them into some serious circumstances. So we want to do a better job of educating our students, which is why we're adding or proposing to add the Digital Literacy 8. We want to make sure we're setting our students up for success with some of the technology resources, whether it's hardware, whether it's software, whether it's the internet, so that they make the best choices possible for them. So it is also about balance. You heard us talking about eliminating the 5 different schedules that currently exist right now, time-wise, balancing health and phys ed a little bit differently so that students are active all year long, and also balancing digital literacy, which we view right now as a need for our students, with technology education, art, FCS, music, etc. So it's those things that drove us to the ultimate recommendation you'll see.
Speaking of digital literacy, so the incumbent schedule is digital literacy is in the 6th grade, but is that what?
Yes.
But at a lower administration, right? It's going to be elevated in terms of the administration, but it's also a new course, or it will be an evolved course from the 6th, because you mentioned that the current course is somewhat static or dated.
Correct.
So I'm just more curious about what is the actual digital literacy 8 course look like, or is that to be determined?
That's to be determined. There's been some conversation there. We've not dug into that deeply based on this recommendation and making sure that we're moving forward with it. We didn't want to spend too much time, but yes, the Digital Literacy 6 course will be looked at along with what we know students need to be able to know and do with digital wellness, with digital literacy. There may be some things from Digital Literacy 6 that move to 8th grade, some new things that are encompassed in 6th, but that'll be determined by the group that meets to really develop the holistic curriculum for grade 6 and 8.
The other thing, I want to add, as you're asking the question, Mr. McGuire, and we talked about it today in a conversation, digital literacy was actually developed out of the humanities and an English course. It is offered by our librarian at the middle level. So there is a strong connection to students researching using the internet as a source, and also writing and citing those sources appropriately and building upon what they are introduced to as sixth graders in eighth grade. So we really want to make a robust course, develop a robust experience so that, again, our students are set up for success, making good choices and using these tools appropriately, ethically. You'll hear more about what's proposed in that, presuming the schedule is ultimately approved. Yes.
And just going back on my subject here is, if we're condensing tech ed, what does that do with our staff? Are we losing a class times that we have teachers now assigned to, or are they getting reassigned to teach something else, or?
So we have 2 open positions right now. Those positions will be attritioned, and there will be cost savings associated. So whereas in the other special areas, we have 1 teacher per middle school, so we have 1 art teacher, 1 FCS teacher. We have 2 technology education teachers right now, or 2 positions per building. In each of our middle schools, 1 position will be attrition. They are open positions. No one's losing a job, but they will not be filled. The recommendation on the part of administration is to reduce and create this more balanced schedule and attrition those positions, which translate to cost savings in the budget. Okay.
It answers my question. I'm sure there's.
I did or didn't? I'm sorry.
No, it answers my
Oh, okay.
question to
Did
make
you-
sure
did-
that, because I'm assuming, obviously, there'd be losing tech ed
Right, right.
situation,
Your mic is off.
but I turned it off. I don't talk this much usually.
But
If I'm on YouTube,
They're good questions.
if
They
I'm
are
on
good
YouTube
questions.
today, yeah, everyone's, who is that guy?
you're on YouTube, yes.
Forever.
need to move the mic closer to you.
He's good.
I can talk, I loud, I'm a loudspeaker.
So you are right, Mr. Williams, in that typically, if we reduce the occurrences or the meetings for students, we reduce a coursework, we curtail a program, is actually the state's phrasing of that. We would lose staff or have to furlough staff. As a district, our board has supported administration and avoided that. Really, there's been 1 furlough that I am aware of in my experience here. So this is a unique opportunity where really the stars aligned for us. We believe we've created a strong balance for students and experiences, because if we go back to the purpose of the middle level, the philosophy that we have upheld is experiential and interest prompting, if you will. We want students to experience different learning, and we want to spark their interest. That's been a goal at the middle level. They have 2 specials every day. One of the board members asked me, how often do they meet in specials? They have 2 special classes every day. At the elementary level, they only have 1. At the high school, it depends on what electives they might elect. They have 2 every day, and part of the purpose of that is to expose them to different experiences, different learning experiences, and different areas that will spark interest in them that they then may pursue in high school or beyond. So the schedule that we're proposing, we believe, is balanced in meeting the needs of students and upholding that philosophy.
So some of the questions that have been asked, I think they're very good ones, and I think it's important that we have the conversation in public, that the community as well as our buildings understand that the board has given a significant amount of thought to the proposition of this. And I think that with regards to how you've presented it, it's very well thought out. Some of the thoughts that I have around it are, if we're taking the opportunity to revise and revisit middle school programming, I think that it is very important for the opportunity to also be taken to prompt different thinking with regards to how instruction is delivered in these subject areas. And when I say that, specifically, for example, with digital literacy, the increased amount of digital literacy content, I think, will be beneficial to all of our middle school students. I do, however, think that that is something that should be integrated across all subject areas, because I don't know that everything can be covered in a digital literacy class. I think integration within health, integration within ELA, as you mentioned, integration into the other special areas with regard to research and things like that. Digital literacy is something that is pervasive in all areas. So although specific digital literacy stewardship should be taught in a digital literacy class, I think that there's an overarching theme that it needs to be integrated. The other thing that I wanted to say with regards to PE and health, and I know we've been having this conversation for some time, I think that creating continuity every other day makes a lot of sense. I think for the reasons that you've offered, it makes a lot of sense. I think that revising health curriculum to bring it into this century is extraordinarily imperative when we have students showing up in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade that have more information already in their back pockets than they are given in the classroom. I think that they have the and should be afforded the opportunity to challenge what they're taught in health. And I think that the norms of the way it's always been are not adequate, especially at the middle level for learners that are looking for foundational information, specifically with regards to how that would integrate with digital literacy. And then with regards to PE, I would like to see a revisit of the curriculum to allow for more choice and autonomy for activity for all students. I don't personally feel that the way PE is currently delivered is inclusive of all students. I think that there are many students that would be more active if there were opportunities for them to not have competition-based or team-based activities, and they were given some choice and autonomy to being active, rather than, if the end goal is activity, then they should be given autonomy and choice for activity. And I understand that supervising becomes a challenge and schedules become a challenge. I know you mentioned the middle school schedule, but for anybody around this table who has middle schoolers currently or that have lived through the middle school schedule, I don't know how they keep it straight. Somehow it makes sense to them and they keep it straight. It's wild, and I didn't understand it, so this is simpler for me, but there was no issue in my household. But those are my thoughts, you know, and with regards to the tech ed and the best of the best, I don't know that I necessarily like the way that wording is, although I do understand the sentiment of it. I feel as though that we are given, in this instance of revisiting schedule, a unique opportunity to make the most robust and rigorous curriculum for that content area as possible. Make it better than it was. And I do think that in condensing curriculum for the purpose of rigor, not to just squeeze it in, but for the purpose of rigor, I think that our students would be able to move at a pace that would actually perhaps not lose very much at all. That would be my desire. I understand that certain things take a certain duration. However, I do think that students are hungry, especially in a class like that, where there's an actual tangible takeaway for more rigor. So that would be my wish, is that the curriculum actually emerges from the middle school programming revisions as a more robust and full curricular schedule of enrichment, not just core area subjects. That's my takeaway on the middle school program. Obviously, I've given it a lot of thought, and I just feel as though it's a nice opportunity for not just our kids, but also for our staff to keep them fresh and hungry to just move forward progressively.
Sure. No, and I think point well taken. You articulated that much better than I did, so I always appreciate that, Ms. White. I agree with you, specifically, not just in PE, but some of the conversations we've had throughout the last couple months has been about choice and building choice into all of these special areas, right? So it's not necessarily just about PE, but as a former PE teacher myself, I totally get that. There are certain lifelong activities that some folks are very much into and some are not, and that begins pretty young. So we do need to expose them to a lot. We need to make sure that they aren't only doing certain activities, but are really exposed to a large variety of things. I know there's an upcoming grant through the Ed Foundation to supplement some lifelong activities that currently aren't being taught in middle school, which I think has some really fun potential for students to be exposed to things that they're not currently. So we'll continue to look for those opportunities. And obviously always looking as we go through curriculum to make it robust and rigorous and really expose students to everything they need to be able to know and do.
Can I
Ms.
say
Wa-
one thing? I love, love, love that phys ed is going to be year-round for every student. I think that's what we need to do for the health and well-being of our student. I also agree that, and I don't know what the current curriculum is in phys ed, but to be inclusive, having different types of activities, and I don't know if we still do kickball and Greek dodgeball, and I would love a presentation on what phys ed is currently doing. You know, do we do Tai Chi? Do we do yoga? Those are single lifetime sports, you know, and I know there's also capital involved with that or funding, but there is a lot of different things where people don't have to compete with others because some people aren't comfortable with that. I personally liked Greek dodgeball, but
Excellent, because it was absolutely traumatizing to me, and the idea of you even saying the words causes me to actually have anxiety.
well,
So-
I wasn't saying I was good at it, but it was kind of fun. But yeah, so I would ask if we could possibly have some kind of a presentation on phys ed. What is the current curriculum and what are our opportunities for engaging with our students in an inclusive way?
Sure, absolutely. If that's
Thank you.
something that you'd look for, I think we could certainly, as we revamp some of the curriculum and really look to add choice, we can maybe do a comparison as we get closer to next year or even towards the end of this year. Our thinking as far as curriculum goes, what have we been doing and where are we headed?
If I may, just a couple of thoughts here. Ms. White's point about the choice in physical education, I think, is an interesting one, and I think is quite valid there, that there should be different pathways for children to get their physical activities in and express it. The flip side of that being, if we're offering multiple activities during the same period of time, there's your personnel stressor again, because now instead of it being a single teacher in that time period, we're essentially taking that savings that we're having personnel-wise, and we're creating a situation where there would need to be some. Now, obviously, we're not doing this tonight, so
It would
there's a
need to
lot to
be,
think
I think it would need to
about.
be center-based. I think there are ways around offering choice within a
There are
period.
ways.
Yeah.
The other point that I think was a good one that you had, Ms. White, was about the digital literacy and it being integrated throughout the curriculum and through many of the different grade ranges. Because when I look at digital literacy as an 8th grade experience, that's way too late. From my experience, those skills, which I understand we're starting them in 6th grade there, they're online way before that. They need to know the digital literacy skills well before 8th grade. If we wait until 8th grade, the horse has already left the barn at that point, in my humble opinion. So I think that's just something that we need to think about, whether or not that it's more important to integrate it and have that be a part rather than perhaps this separate thing in the 8th grade. And if we were to come to that kind of conclusion, using a similar rationale as with the PE, the tech ed things are very similar in that there's different categories of activities and of subject matter that is contained in tech ed. And I don't know if our students are best served by the condensing of it necessarily, rather than offering a wider array of things, especially in the 8th grade, because the 8th grade's the time when they're making the decisions whether they want to go to the tech school or not. And I think it's important that they get as much of a foundation in what different skills can I pick up, whether it be woodworking, CAD work, print, all the different things that they should be exposed to. I think it's important, and I think it says something about our district that we value exposing our students to as many things as possible in the technology field as well as in some of these other areas.
Yeah, I think that's very important, right? And I think the, future of the world right now is kind of going that way, where it was always college, college, college. Well, now I think a lot of people are opening their eyes to, technical programs after school and even being on the JOC. So that's close to my heart there, the trades. But so that's why I'm kind of harping on the tech ed thing as well. So I think it'd be important to piggyback off of what Cindy said here about seeing what the PE schedule is and what they're actually doing in there, would be a compare and contrast to the old tech ed programs that we had and what we would then replace them to, so we could actually physically see that, okay, this is what we'd be teaching now, and then this is what we would be losing, because I am interested in what we would be losing if we go forward with that.
And I guess I just would offer, so the curriculum guides for all content, all subjects are actually listed on the district's website. Sure. So I think a comparison, a proposed revision, would be helpful maybe during education committee at some point. But with regards to what's currently covered, it is broad. It's not, down to the nuts and bolts specifics, but for PE, for example, it is all listed through there, and the topics, same thing for health. Hypothetically, having a child that has printed curriculum guides and redlined them if they, with feedback. So I think it's helpful, though, to have that context of what the starting point is.
Yeah, that's something we can absolutely keep updated as we move forward, for sure. All right. As I said, I would be giving a brief update on enrollment and staffing today, and that brief update is that we'll be doing a comprehensive review next Thursday at Education Committee of the Whole. So we've been working with our elementary, middle, and high school teams, really quite literally meeting after meeting since the early retirement incentive plan results came back. And we're putting that together, and we'll be updating the board on all of those plans next Thursday evening. So that concludes the end of my report. And with that, unless there are any questions specific to next Thursday's Education Committee of the Whole, I'll invite Ms. Aducci up with her team for our special education update.
Okay, good. Thank you, everybody. We have our team that joined us tonight. We have Dr. Gibbons, Mrs. Evans, and Mrs. McCord, and we will walk you through our annual special education update tonight. So much of our work is rooted in Policy 113. It designates that we shall develop procedures for evaluating the effectiveness of the district's special education plan and programming, and shall periodically report to the board the criteria and results of such evaluation. So much of our work, along with the annual update in regard to special education, is derived from Policy 113. And there are many ways that we are held accountable to reporting out on how we're upholding our work and how we're held accountable to the work that we're doing. And we've included here a bulleted list of the primary ways in which we are held accountable to reporting out our data, to looking at discrepancies from year to year and making comparisons amongst the data, as well as program quality and improvement. Some of the main areas that we look at are compliance monitoring. Our next compliance monitoring schedule is scheduled for 27-28 school year. We will spend a good majority of next year getting prepared for that. We have our special education comprehensive plan, which will be due next year. So we'll be spending the majority of the beginning of next year starting to get prepared for preparing and reporting out on our comprehensive plan. We have our December 1 and our July 1 annual counts that we report out, as well as we look at our data. We looked at that during our comprehensive data report earlier in the year. And we look at other key pieces of evidence, including least restrictive environment. We'll see that a little bit later in some of the slides we will present. That includes our continuum of support and services and how our students are being included in the least restrictive environment, as well as graduation rates and dropout rates. Paired with parent involvement, those tend to be reported out on an annual basis through some of the PDE reports that we can share. Here's a snapshot. When we last met, I believe it was in November, we didn't quite have our 12-1 count finalized. We had a fairly good idea of what that number would be. As we moved through the process, our 12-1 count had us at 58 teachers, 126 paraprofessionals, and our total special education enrollment was at 873. We look at the same numbers here in March, and we compare the numbers. We've seen a slight decrease in our paraprofessional employment, and we have seen a slight increase in the total number of special education students enrolled. Those are typical variations, though, as we move through the year. After our December 1 count is published.
Ms. Adducci, I'm so sorry. On the previous slide, just really super quick, that number of students, that's district-wide K through 12?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So it's because 20 seems like a lot of a growth. So, I mean, I know that there's variations in identification throughout the year, but those, just to be clear, they're spread across, do you see isolation in one area or?
We don't. We tend to see an influx of eligibility or enrollment as year goes on.
Yep.
At the beginning of the school year, we have our students moving in. We go through a period in which we look at our MTSS structures. We look at providing interventions for our students. As the year goes on, we might move into more of our MDE processes for our students, in which we might find that more of our students are eligible through that MDE process.
Okay.
So that could account for it. We have a number of move-ins, so the number does fluctuate. We don't look at any specific patterns right now. It's not out of the ordinary for that number to fluctuate like
Okay.
that.
I guess the reason that drew my attention is only because with the number of 20, and I realize we have many buildings and many grades, is that a reduction of paraprofessionals without an increase or decrease in teachers would maybe place a burden.
So we do have currently some openings available. We've
Okay.
had a couple of resignations throughout the school year.
Yep.
Some of our paraprofessionals have left, or they have accepted internships or some other educational programs. We are looking to fill those slots so that we're reducing that burden.
Okay. I appreciate you just clarifying it. I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention because I don't think it's anyone's intention to put a burden on any one grade or building.
No, not at all.
Can I ask a follow-on question to that as well? Are those special education paras, or are those numbers also including our instructional paras?
So it depends on what you mean by instructional paras. So that number does include our special education instructional paras, along with our one-to-one support paras.
Okay.
It does not include paras that are hired from a general education standpoint to support the building.
Okay. And how many, so those are the number of current employees. How many positions do we have? So how many openings currently exist? Or do you have a sense of that?
I would say I would have to, look at Mr. Moran to potentially get a number for you. I would guesstimate maybe we have between 7 and 10 positions. For example, I think we have 2 at the high school. We have 3 currently at Skipback. And we might have 1 or 2 kind of floating around at other buildings. For the most part, we're engaging in that interviewing process throughout the entire school year so that we are trying to very efficiently fill those open slots. But I would say probably about 6 or 7 slots right now.
That's fairly close. I can give you exact numbers by the end of today's meeting.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
No problem.
And does the district make practice then to work with a third party to supplement and fill substitute roles, or how are those roles posted on for coverage on a day-to-day basis?
So currently, our district, we do that in-house.
Yep.
So the HR department is responsible for providing our substitutes with the open positions. That is something that we're looking at currently to potentially go with a third party. And we'll actually present that information to the school board, the financial committee as a whole moving forward.
Okay, and then just to clarify, just so it's very clear, we're not looking to replace paras with a third party. We're just looking to supplement the open positions with para substitutes.
Correct.
With a third party.
Correct. Day-to-day substitutes.
Got it. I just want to make sure that everyone understands that that's what you said. Okay.
Okay. So moving back to the slides, after our December 1 count is published, PDE provides us with comparison reports in specific categories. One of the categories that we look at is disability by LEA. This allows us to take a deeper dive and disaggregate our data, looking for any significant discrepancy, any type of patterns that might pop out for us that we might want to take a deeper dive on. What we do know, one of the highlights in this report is that the number of our students who are eligible in the area of autism continues to increase year after year. That could correlate a lot to, again, when we take a closer look at early intervention in our slides upcoming, that tends to be a direct correlation to the number of students moving into our programs and then moving through our programs. So that's a very similar comparison to the number of students. You'll see an increase in our early intervention numbers.
I have a question about this as well. So of these categories here, are these numbers representative of students that have an IEP that currently receive district services for these diagnoses, or are they the number of students in the district that have a documented eligibility?
So what we report out to PDE and through PIMS is the students' primary and secondary eligibility areas, which means that it must be a primary or secondary. These are listed as primary eligibility areas. So the student must have a primary eligibility in the area of emotional disturbance, that they're identified in our school district, that they're receiving services through an IEP, and that it's specifically listed as their primary disability.
With an IEP attached to the services that they receive in an autistic support classroom, or even if they're in a general education classroom with an IEP associated with autism?
Yes, so I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
So especially in regard to the autistic support, the number 141 does not denote that we have 141 students in a program. If you recall, program and eligibility aren't always synonymous. So a student's eligibility does not always mean that they're receiving services in an autistic support class or an emotional support class if they're emotionally disturbed. It simply just designates, here's the student's eligibility. We look at the student needs in relation to that eligibility, and we match out what program is best going to meet the student's needs. And a lot of times that does have to do with the severity of the student's eligibility and or disability area.
Thank you. I just wanted to put context around the numbers and hear you say it.
Sure.
I appreciate it.
No problem.
Quick question. The growth on the bottom part of the slide, growth is growth. What drives the attrition at the top of the slide?
You mean the difference where it says -7, -1?
Yeah, so that's a year-on-year comparative attrition, right? So unless students are leaving, it's not like people stop being blind, for instance. So I'm curious about what drives the attrition versus the growth is growth is growth, but the attrition's curious.
You have things like students are graduating. You
Okay.
have things like students who are moving in or moving out of our district. You have students who tend to potentially be requalified. They might no longer be, if they go through the reevaluation process, their primary disability area might change as they move through programming.
What's the overwhelming driver? Is it graduation or relocation?
I would say in particular with the intellectual disability, most likely graduation.
Okay. Yeah, because then the next biggest one would be emotional disturbance. So maybe that's reclassification.
That could be reclassification. That could also be the number of students were identified. Yes, you'll have the graduation leavers, and then are we continuing at the same rate, identifying the students who we've historically programmed for our students in emotional disturbance.
Okay, so then the ultimate then implication of this slide is that this is a net growth, positive and negative, overall K through 12.
Right.
So a trend analysis of this is this was a year complete district
Mm-hmm.
attrition for those classifications, growth for the other classifications.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So this slide is in particular disability by LEA. This gives you a visual in particular around our students who are identified in our autistic support as their primary eligibility area. So this gives you a visual and you can see the increase, and this is about over an 8-year period. We've had roughly 50% increase over those 8 years, moving from a total of 96 up through 141 students. Our next slide here pinpoints specifically educational environment, or whether or not our students are being serviced in a least restrictive environment. That is one thing we can glean out of this report. This highlights our work in the area of inclusion. What you can see here is the number of our students who are included in the regular education or general education classroom, 80% or more of the day. That is the top number. That's a number that you'll see a lot referenced throughout reports or through the CEDRA data reports or CEDRA data at a glance throughout the year. So again, this highlights our ability to include our students in the general education environment at a high rate. And what you'll see also in this trend is that the comparison numbers is you'll see a slight decrease in the number of students that we have placed out of district right now. Again, overall, this is looking at our commitment to the inclusion of our students in their home school buildings, trying not to place students out and servicing them within our school district, but also including them in the general education environment to the best of our ability. And you can see that's highlighted in the visuals in this slide here. This also does provide you a comparison to what the state number of inclusion is in the regular education environment more than 80% of the time. You can see we have steadily increased over the years and maintained a high level of inclusion, 80% or more of the day, whereas the state, their numbers are fluctuating between 61.1% and maybe 61.7%. They've remained fairly stagnant throughout the last 10 years or so. And then the other visual just outlines the differences in terms of our out-of-district placement for our students in comparison to the state numbers. We're typically fairly close to the state numbers in regard to out-of-district placements, but we have seen a fairly small decline there moving through this year. This is the report you'll be able to reference. This is what we call our CEDRA or Special Education Data Report at a glance. This year's report, which will reflect our December 1 count, usually comes out over the summer in and about August, but this provides you the last 2 years for comparison. One thing that our Special Education Data Report does not capture is some of the early intervention data that we talk about and that we look at throughout the year, and the implications that that early intervention data has on our staffing, our resources, and our programming. So I will turn it over to Dr. Gibbons, and she'll take you through a couple slides in regard to our early intervention.
So good evening. Again, I'm here to present some context around early intervention. So our early intervention process actually goes for about 11 of 12 months out of the school or out of the calendar year. We get our initial referral numbers in late October, early November every year. And then we begin meeting with our families individually between December and February of each year. We're legally bound to meet with them before March 1st. During those meetings, we go through each student's unique programming needs, and a permission to evaluate is issued in order to conduct evaluations to determine what that specific child needs. If a student is found eligible, then we develop those IEPs. That process can take us sometimes heavily into June, July, and even up until the week before school if we have students who move in. Currently, this year, our original referral number was 46. We are down to 38 at this point. We have 11 students who are potentially eligible for autistic support. We have 14 potentially eligible for learning support and 13 who are just receiving speech and language only. The difference between that 46 and 38 is that parents have the option to have their child do an extra year in early intervention and postpone starting school-age services. So it can either be that a parent has decided to keep their child back for a year to give them that gift of time. They may also have let us know that they are intending to go to a private school or a different type of schooling option for them. Okay. So this chart actually shows you, or I'm sorry, this graph actually shows you our trend over the last 10 years. If you look all the way to the right-hand side, you'll see it's 16, 17, all the way up to currently. I would ask that you pay the most attention to those those first 5 columns. Those are our kiddos who are going to be sitting in our elementary autistic support programs next school year. What you can see is we've had a very consistent trend upward, and we have a very large bubble that came in last school year. So the impact of these numbers on our current existing programs. So we are only losing 3 of our students from the elementary autistic support program to our middle level this year. However, we have incoming 11. So that means we have a plus of 8. Students from Schwenksville and Skipback attend our Skipback programs. Students from South and Evergreen attend our South programs. And we have K-5 programming in each of the buildings. Currently, we are projected to have 26 students at Skipback next year and 21 at South. We are legally obligated to only have 8 students on a teacher's caseload. So next year at Skipback, we are going to be over that 8 requirement. So we are going to have to look at how we can have an additional teacher to support those programs. If we have those 4 teachers in those programs, it will take that number down to 6.5. At South, right now, if we were to add 1, it would lower caseloads, but we would have 5.25. So currently with these numbers, we would be able to absorb 3 move-ins at South for next year, and with the addition of another autistic support teacher at Skipback, we would actually have 6 spots available. We do typically get move-ins over the summer.
Ms. Gibbons, on that previous slide, can you talk about the number of classrooms that equals?
So right now, we have 3 programs at South, and we have 3 programs at Skipback. So this would increase to a 4th program.
At both schools?
We are currently asking for
another classroom at Skipback only?
Yes.
Okay, understood. And then can you talk about how those class cohorts are developed? Is it K1, 2, and then 4 and 3, and then 4 and 5, or is it based on need? What's the cohort model that you employ?
So typically what we do is we start with our breakdown of who we have in our buildings. We do have at both Skipback and South, we have K-only teachers right now. And then we have 1, 2, and 3 at Skipback, and 4 and 5. So that's across those, whereas South, we have, if you notice, there's a very large bump in that 1st grade. For right now, we have 9 kindergartners spread across 2 classrooms, and we have that classroom is integrated with kindergarten and 1st, and then our numbers, if you notice, our 3, 4, 5 are much lower, so that is more of 1 caseload.
Okay, and then just so there's context for board, I know in our walkthrough we touched on it a little bit, but can you also talk about how many adults, this is teacher numbers, and I understand that about lessons, et cetera, but those rooms come with additional adults.
Yes, you're correct. So we have additional paraprofessional support, sorry, it's late in the evening, who support in those classes. And we do have a very high staff-to-student ratio because of the level of need of students in those classrooms. So we usually don't go above 2 to 1, meaning two students to one staff member, but we also have many one-to-one positions due to the level of need.
Based on need and identification?
Yes.
Okay.
But
and some of them are personal care assistants as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we also have the support of an OT, a PT, speech and language, and a BCBA. So those rooms can be very full.
Do those services pull out of the room, though, correct?
Yes and no. So
Okay.
yes, they pull out for individualized services, but we do have some of our speech and language
Push in for speech.
for speech or to support social skills types of activities.
Oh, social skills happen in that main classroom. Okay, understood.
Yes.
They don't pull out for social skills. Does anyone have any questions about that? The setup of the classrooms? Okay, thank you for clarifying that part.
Okay. This is just our special education at a glance. Basically, what are the trends that we have currently been seeing across the year? Our rate of inclusion continues to increase and remain steady. It is much higher than the rate of inclusion across the state, as well as a number of our local districts. Again, our overall percentage of special education students who are identified within the district continues to climb, whereas our enrollment continues to decrease. So that's where we see that discrepancy in overall percentage of special education students. And another theme that we continue to see is overall, in summary, our early intervention increases year to year. This slide just shows you a visual of the service delivery models that we offer across the school buildings. It does provide you a glimpse of our general education and special education services and an overlay of the two. And then what I can do in here, and we had talked about it earlier, is putting in the number of classrooms for each one of these buildings and the program classes that they house for you. So this is just a general overview of our programming by building. In South, we have autistic support. We have 3 classes in learning support. Schwanksville, learning support. Evergreen has 2 emotional support classes and learning support. And Skipback Elementary has 3 autistic support classes currently, as well as learning support. We remain relatively stable at the secondary levels. There are no significant recommendations in regard to the programming that we have offered over the last school year and moving into next school year. So this is a general outline of the, again, programs that we offer at each level. If you remember back in, I believe it was November, we provided you a glimpse into the work that the special education department was focusing on for the year. Over the course of the last several months, we've been meeting monthly with many of our building administration through our admin meetings once a month. We've been able to focus on primarily the top 3 bullet points with our buildings, specifically in regard to enhancing or building that robust continuum of services. Remember, we have an obligation to provide that obligation, or an obligation to provide that continuum, and we have an obligation to provide different levels of support along the way. So what we had experienced was, and what we had seen as a trend was that we were putting a lot of resources into kind of the bookends of that continuum, and how are we building up the middle of that continuum to be able to provide more flexible and adaptive support for our students in the moment. We were looking at providing a number of different instructional models along the way, not just focusing specifically on our learning support classes or our co-teaching classes, but what are different ways that we can allocate our staffing and our resources, looking at different facilitator models as well as consultative models. And More importantly, we were looking at the structures and the processes that we had within our buildings and across the district that were creating challenges for our students and becoming roadblocks for providing the level of support and service we knew that our students needed. So along with the building admins, we have been looking at what does the scheduling look like. A lot of the middle school recommendations, we were a part of those conversations to say, how can we look at scheduling to better accommodate for our student needs? And how can we look at some of the different processes that were becoming those obstacles to meeting those student needs, or even the culture of our buildings? And, you know, we've done this in the past, and this is what we've always done. How do we switch some of that mindset to say, how can we better suit our student needs through different service delivery models? Mrs. McCord will provide just a quick glimpse into what we're doing at the high school in terms of looking at our delivery model a little bit differently and really trying to provide more intense and focused intervention and supports for our students.
All right, so like Mrs. Aducci did say, we do have a multitude of different options for our students, especially when we're considering our continuum of special education services. One of those pieces is our instructional seminars at the high school. Under the current model, they are available for 3-day and 6-day options, depending on the decisions of the IEP team and the amount of service that that particular student needs. Instructional seminar is more of our general service when we provide special education supports across all subject areas. We also focus in on a lot of that executive functioning skills, so organization, being able to have grade management, being able to task manage and all of those components, as well as some of those levels of coping skills and social skills as well. Then we also have for supports for our students who have IEP goals in either the area of math or reading. We have specific math seminars and reading seminars, as well as some of our seminars that work on social skills and emotional supports. Those can work on some of our self-regulation, as well as those social skills, the emotional and behavioral interventions, and also when we consider the social skills for some of our students who are identified with autism or those related disability categories. So it gives us a variety of different things to consider as IEP teams when we look at services for our students. Some of the limitations under the current model, and really just under the system of how we schedule, is that our seminar classes include students in a variety of courses. So for example, if we're considering math seminar, we may have students who are coming to us from Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2, all within that same period, which can present its own challenges in terms of individualizing services and supports. We also have limited opportunities and resources to specifically address writing needs and goals. As I said, we have our reading seminar, and so it's embedded in that area, but we understand that that balance of written expression and that reading comprehension is necessary for students as they move forward. High number of students in instructional seminar, so we do have students, we're up to about 12 to 14 in certain periods, which can be very difficult to address all of that variety of the courses that are coming to them. We may have students who are working on just managing their grades or working on a variety of different courses that they're working through tasks. The other piece is that current flexibility being limited to the 3-day or 6-day options. So here's an example of one of our seminars. In particular, I'm going to focus in on our math seminar. So they may start the class with small group direct instruction, highlighting a specific course area and different generalized math skills that can then be applied to that course. Individual support on classwork is available for the remainder of the class period and spread across students in various classes. So you can see our periods are 46 minutes, so the teacher may start the class with 23 minutes of direct instruction for Algebra 1 and then rotate support and continue that throughout a 6-day cycle where they'd be able to address the different courses in math as well. We also do have paraprofessional support in those classes and those who have been selected who really work well in that particular course area. So it's not that students are completely independent during that time, but in terms of being able to have that direct instruction being provided by a special education teacher, we want to make sure that we can really increase that. So here's an example of a typical Algebra 1 student who would be receiving math seminar. They would receive those 23 minutes of Algebra 1 and then the rotated support. Also then paired with that independent work on the other periods where the teacher would be working with other students in other course areas. So for a 3-day seminar student, that would equate to about 23 minutes of direct instruction and then that supported work throughout the rest of that. Whereas in a 6-day seminar, we'd be looking at 46 minutes. So in conversations with a lot of our special education teachers, our students, our families, what we were really looking at is how we can provide a more specialized model to make sure that we're not only able to then work on those specific skills that student needs to work on, but to increase our efficiency in how we're providing that within our actual system of scheduling. So what we're proposing is pairing periods of math and reading seminar with instructional seminar courses. Then we can assign students in reading and math seminar in areas to support that need in that particular cycle. It gives us a lot more adaptability and being able to provide those specific skills depending on what the student needs, not only in that moment, but as reflected in their IEP. So it creates that more direct instruction opportunities, the ability for instructional seminar to focus in smaller, more specialized groups, because students will also be receiving math and reading during that time, pulling from that section. And then again, linking students with specific supports based on their individual needs with those teachers who are specifically trained in those areas in reading and math. So here's an example of what that alignment may look like. So a student would be placed in an instructional seminar class for that learning support period, and then simultaneously there would be a math and reading seminar that's paired within that same period. So this structure really just highlights what one period would look like, and this would be available every period of our day. So students who, for example, may need Algebra 1, they could then be in that math seminar class for Algebra 1 and still be able to continue with the instructional seminar supports that they may need in the other areas of their coursework, as well as even just managing their tasks and their different assignments. So in the current model, again, if you remember, we said the 3-day seminar was 23 minutes of direct instruction, and then the 6-day seminar was approximately 46 minutes of direct instruction. Even with going to the 2-day model, they would be receiving the 46 minutes of direct instruction. So even though it would be less days, the efficiency of that has increased, and they'd be getting at or more than what they had been receiving previously. By doing this, this also then gives us a lot more flexibility to be able to fine-tune what supports students receive. So this particular student may have goals in the area of writing and Algebra 1 as well, or in math as well, and so they would be able to have those either as part of their daily schedule, or let's say that a writing assignment is coming up that they're having particular difficulty with, they would have that flexibility to be able to receive those services in real time as they continue through that coursework. Continuing a lot of our conversations when it comes to our continuum of services, Mrs. Evans will be able to talk about our middle school services.
Thank you. So I'll be able to wrap it up here with the middle school. So at the middle school, what we're really looking to improve upon for next year is that continuum of services. So you'll see the 4 that are presented here: co-teaching, a consultative model, parallel instruction, and replacement instruction. We've really focused, as Ms. Aducci said, more on the co-teaching and then the replacement, where the middle has not been as convenient as maybe we would hope. So I've been working with Mr. Creedon and Mr. DeAndre on the master schedules for the middle schools to kind of align our coursework and how those classes are scheduled to allow for more of those middle 2 models for the students who need a different level of support than we're currently providing. Okay. So we also are holding transition meetings. We had a big transition day on April 1st during that in-service day where our 5th grade case managers met with the middle school, 8th grade met with the high school, and talked about needs of individual students very specifically. We talked about potential caseloads. So there's a lot of transition work going as well, and then also between 6th to 7th and 7th to 8th. The other thing I'd like to talk about is, because I am the supervisor for both middle schools, but also Evergreen Elementary, where the emotional support program is happening. So that's a K-8 emotional support program. So we're moving forward, building the capacity in our emotional support teachers to allow them to be able to provide some of that direct instruction in the emotional support program themselves. So while they may not be right now experts in iReady Math in 3rd grade and kindergarten, and we're trying to increase that capacity in those teachers. So when those students do need to be flexible and maybe spend some extra time in that special education room, they are still getting that instruction that they need. So just overall, the emotional support programming is always a work in progress. Our students are changing every day. The classrooms are flexible, like I said. Teams are working closely with our behavior specialists, our BCBAs, and there is paraprofessional support assigned for those programs. And that's an area that we use our paraprofessionals at Evergreen specifically, and the middle schools as well, each have a paraprofessional assigned to the program. Overall, that's a summary of our goals for the year as special education supervisors and as a department. And I'd invite any questions for us that haven't been asked.
I appreciate all of you very much, and thank you for taking the questions that we've had so far. The only question that I have, the proposed changes to the schedule blocks, they seem common sense and like progress, honestly. I think they seem favorable. The question that I have associated with them is whether or not there's impact based on caseload numbers. So do these schedules work regardless, or do the schedules only work with a certain...
Middle school
No,
or high school?
I mean, well, in general, because I think that there's some overlapping. Elementary is a little different, right?
It is.
Because that's a different thing altogether. But when it's subject specific, obviously you want to give attention to each child.
I can speak quickly to the middle school because on April 1st, prior to that, I had all the case managers fill out a Google form with what do these kids need? What is your
Okay.
recommendation for next year? And so I'm looking at those numbers and then talking with the principals because they're developing those schedules for next year already.
Okay.
And so what would make sense to line up in the schedule where we could put staffing in there? So we're really trying to get ahead of it.
Okay. And then at the high school, again, it gets even more specific because as those needs really solidify around, those are the needs that are carried, you know?
Yeah, it really won't impact any of our caseloads or how we arrange our caseloads in the sense that right now we're offering all of these supports. It's just really kind of looking at how we are
delivery.
stabilizing and doing our actual system. So it really wouldn't change how we approach those moving forward.
All right, I think that's an important point because if it only works, say, hypothetically with 20 kids, then it's not a flexible enough improvement. But if it's versatile in that you can use this model regardless of what the caseload is, I think that's very valuable. Excellent. Really, really helpful. Does anyone have any questions?
I have one question. The emotional support, I'm thinking you probably have like some autism, maybe even some intellectual disabilities in that same emotional support, or are they just completely emotional support?
So emotional support, the emotional support program itself can have some crossover. We
Right.
might have students who have the primary eligibility of OHI. We will very rarely see a student with intellectual disability. We feel as though we have programming that meets that student's needs. In terms of autistic support program versus emotional support program for our students who have a primary eligibility of AS, there are a lot of features of both program that overlap one another. We do look at our students individually, and it's not out of the ordinary to service a student in the emotional support program, in particular if their behaviors are more significant or extreme, high levels of verbal communication versus what the autistic support program could potentially offer. So it's not out of the ordinary, but we do look at our student needs individually and determine which program or placement would best suit the needs.
So do you have actual just pure emotional support students that don't have other disabilities?
We do have students with the primary and only disability category of emotional disturbance.
And there has been a decline. Is that wishful thinking on my part that maybe we're starting to calm down after COVID? I mean, I know we saw the spike.
So I think if you look at our overall numbers and that longitudinal data, I don't think you're going to see any significant increases or declines in emotional support. Students who are primarily served in our emotional support program and/or students with that primary disability category, it's a category that's remained fairly stable. We might be experiencing a little bit of a dip. We might be adjusting within our programs. I think overall throughout the school year, we're looking at how we do support our students and through what level of programming, as well as the type of support, whether it's itinerant or supplemental support. So that number may fluctuate as we get a better idea of what our student needs are throughout the school year.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that depth of information. Dr. Nicholson, as you can see from Mrs. White's questioning and query, especially the middle school programming aspect in the beginning, she is a professional school board president, so she covers all the bases for us. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that. I'm sure you've witnessed that the last few months. But just so you
I've
were.
gleaned that over the last couple months. Thank you, Mr. McKinney. I appreciate that.
Your check is in the mail, Todd.
So moving on to education, 4.02, a request to approve a PV student to finish their senior year. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Not hearing anyone, we shall move that to consent. 4.03, request to approve the following international trip as reviewed and forwarded by building principals and district administration. This is to Costa Rica. Are there any questions, comments, or concerns? Not hearing any. We shall move that to consent. 4.04, approval of senior class trip to Disney. Request to approve the following field trip as reviewed and forwarded by the building principals and district administration. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Not hearing any, we shall move that to consent. 4.05 is the enrollment report. Any questions about that? Not hearing any. Ms. White, that completes my section.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. McKinney. Section 5, Business, Dr. Weston.
Thank you, Ms. White. Item 5.01, the Finance Committee of the Whole presentation. Mr. Weaver, may we have your report, please?
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present the Finance Committee of the Whole. We'll move forward fairly quickly. We have 4 topics for tonight. The first one is fairly straightforward. What you see in front of you is a snippet of the actual sponsor-to-sponsor agreement between the Montgomery County Intermediate Unit and Perkiomen Valley School District. This is an annual agreement, and it basically provides lunches and breakfast for our pre-K count at Middle School West and our Head Start program at Evergreen Elementary School. And this year there is a new part of this, which is a pre-K counts class at Arrowhead Elementary School. And why that is, I remember Arrowhead is at Methacton School District. However, in talking with Kelsey Gartner, our food service director, a bunch of the food service directors got together. Methacton has outsourced cafeteria services. So the food service directors got together in order to provide a better lunch and better breakfast for those particular students. The IU actually came to them and said, can you put together a local program? And the food service directors got together, and they are each taking a different component of that. And ours is this particular one. That is the only difference. The good part of this is throughout this, we provide these lunches for the MCIU classes, and we do get some profit base from them based upon the reimbursement from the federal government and the state government by serving these particular meals. And we would recommend that we approve that process. That is on for the board to approve. Any questions on that? Okay, thank you. Moving forward. There has been conversation from Mr. Felty, and we indeed did hear from individuals from the community that are interested in starting up a middle school cheerleading program, both at East and West. We would agree with that, and the total costs are provided for 4 coaches, 2 at East and 2 at West, 1 head and 1 assistant based upon our current data. And that would drive about $20,800 in total salaries between those 4 positions. Supplies for both locations are about $12,200. For many of that is startup costs. So for this particular year, for 26-27, all in, as recommended, would be $33,000. If the board would agree to that, we would like to see if we can add that for next Monday's agenda to actually approve that program. We don't have that on there. I just wanted some feedback, and if you had any feedback for that program.
Mr. Weaver, for supplies, what would that entail? Would that include uniforms, pom-poms, megaphones?
Yeah, as presented by Mr. Felty, who did a lot of the legwork, this would include mats, uniforms, all of the necessary stuff that they would need to perform and to do their things.
Mr. Weaver, I think that number also includes registration and transportation to events.
Yes, that is correct.
I have just one quick, go ahead, I'm so sorry.
I was
Mrs.
just
Lawson,
going to
go ahead.
say, from the presentation last month, the interest that was expressed in the program was really quite impressive. And seeing the demand that we have among our students for this type of program, it sounds like something that would benefit our community. So it's something that I would be in support of.
Thank you.
The question that I have is with regard to a booster club for this level. Will it roll up to the high school cheer boosters, or will it be a separate entity? Has there been discussion around that? Just with regards to managing events and who will be in charge of that?
That has not been discussed. So we can get you some additional information and share that in the weekend letter.
Okay. I mean, I don't really know a whole lot about the program or what's involved. I just understand if there's competitions, it needs to be coordinated. So I just was curious about management of funds and things like that.
Good
I
question.
can speak from experience in a prior district that we did have middle school cheer, very similar to this, and there was a separate booster club parent organization at the middle level. Then those parents would roll to the high school with those student athletes.
And that makes a lot of sense to me. We don't generally have booster programs at the middle level, and this would be a different category of extracurricular. Because
It's
it's
a
not
fair
really,
assessment.
yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you. If it pleases the board, we'll move that forward and add that to next week with the additional information that's being requested. Okay. Thank you. So moving forward into tonight's presentation, I will just hit the highlights. Again, just the changes from the March presentation. For the revenue side, there are no revenue adjustments at this point in time. We continue to look at and monitor areas like earned income tax and some of the other areas that we always talk about. So right now for this presentation, there are no adjustments to the revenues. That locks us in for tonight's presentation is $137,139,414. Again, split between the local, state, and federal revenues. Chart didn't really change. We continue to monitor those things. The alternative revenue sources, again, as listed, as we continue to look at that, we'll continue to monitor those as well with a lot of interest on interim real estate taxes, real estate transfer taxes, and the interest on investments. Moving into the expenditure side of things for tonight, we do have two changes. One is for a continued look and deep dive into our leases that are coming off of schedule. So we are recognizing a reduction of $100,000. In a previous presentation, we recognized a $50,000 reduction. So all told, we have now reduced $150,000 from that figure. And again, that's just constant work behind the scenes between Mrs. Hurd and myself, Mr. Ganesh, Mr. Fabrizio, in terms of those items that we have on lease payment plans, and we continue to monitor those, and we feel better now that we have a couple more months under our belt moving forward with that number. Also, I have taken the liberty to add the middle school cheerleading program to our numbers for tonight's presentation for the $33,000. So the net adjustment is a reduction of $67,000 for tonight's presentation. That brings us to a total of $143,729,732. And again, as has been our process, I keep a running list total of things just in case we all are out in the public and people ask, hey, what are you guys doing up there? Those items in red are the areas that we are looking at and directly correlate to the changes that we've made. One item of note is that Bucksmont Health increased we had it about 15%. Our third look number is about 15.81%. However, we are looking at that number, and I haven't recognized anything additional in there because there are some things happening behind the scenes as we move forward with negotiations. So that is an area that for right now we're holding, and we continue to look at as an area of potential movement, either increase or decrease, depending upon where we move forward in negotiations. And there's a couple of points. Here's the interactive screen cut into 2 screens. The most important thing is probably that we still have a $5.122 million shortfall as of tonight's presentation. However, the 3.5% cap that we've now signed the resolution to stay at is now at 2.28 million. It was recently 2.4 million, then down to 2.3. So we continue to whittle away at that number until we bring ourselves into the 3.5% range that we've approved for the resolution. Mrs. Lofton.
So when will we see savings from the ERIP reflected and, potential attrition of positions reflected in our budget?
Excellent question. And the slide from the previous presentation through Dr. Russell mentioned that there would be a lot of discussion at the Education Committee on the 16th. Once that is done and that process, and then we know what our numbers are, then we'll bring that forward and make those changes at the officially in the May presentation, but I can certainly update the board as we move forward on weekly updates.
It would be interesting to see for when we have that discussion, what the budgetary impact is on some of our decision-making processes. So, what ultimately how much we would wind up needing to pull out of our unassigned fund balance to balance the budget compared with where what would happen for attritioning positions and things of that nature, just so that we're looking at knowing that we have to come out with our preliminary budget for approval in May. The decisions that we're going to be making at that meeting are going to have an important impact on what we come up with to approve in May.
We are preparing that presentation now and continue to have conversations with our administrative team and are looking at the ERIP participants and whether or not they need to be replaced, will be reallocated, or attrition. So we will propose to you where it is we are recommending we land as a school district and why, along with the numbers. And we have briefly gone over those with Mr. Weaver. We'll formalize that and present that as part of what's communicated next week.
Mrs. Lofton, are you looking to see prepared some different scenarios associated with that?
That would be ideal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I've sat through these with you before, so I just want to make sure that we're prepared ahead of education. So maybe there's a best case scenario, worst case scenario, maximize, minimize variations, because I think that before we make decisions about attrition, there is more than just a budgetary impact to those decisions. So I just want to make sure that that not just you, all of us collectively are provided with the impact of what those numbers look like based on the scenario recommendation.
Exactly. I mean, we have constraints around timing and scheduling and content and curriculum.
And the sooner the better in having direction is what you're getting
at. Well, knowing that we need to make a decision for that in May because, and to our new board members, in May is we have to approve a preliminary budget and it has to be available to the public for 30 days. So May is that, I believe Jim shared this initially, but that will be when we're making those decisions of this is the budget that and the staffing that we're going out with.
So here's what I want to offer. In terms of our thinking at this point, we are going to offer you the recommendation. We are landing on a place as an administrative team that we believe will best serve our students, maintain programming, and demonstrate fiscal responsibility to our community. So that would be what we will present to you. It may not be the best case scenario. We won't have the lowest class sizes possible everywhere, but we will propose to you solutions that bring reasonable class sizes forward. We can give you a dollar figure that we can tag if we add a staff or keep a staff or avoid attritioning a staff. We can let you know mathematically how that might impact that total dollar value. But what we're preparing for you is literally what changes you will see in staffing at each level, how that will impact class sizes or programming, and then the dollar figures associated with those. So balancing all of those factors together.
Hearing that, is there anything that anyone would like to see proactively to give administration a view of what they may need to present? Okay. If questions arise, though, please feel free to communicate.
Yeah,
Yep.
and we can certainly follow up the questions that may emerge. We will, certainly follow up the questions that might emerge as part of that Education Committee of the Whole conversation. And I know we've referenced that a few times. It's taken us some time as an administrative team to come up with where we believe we want to be with a recommendation. We're trying to be very thoughtful, analytical, fair, and fiscally responsible, balancing these things with the shortfall that's before us right now.
Is it possible to get those recommendations prior to the 16th so that we have time to review them and provide feedback, and as opposed to just responding to it on the fly?
Yes, it is absolutely possible. We have a big meeting tomorrow where we really want to try and continue to fine-tune some of the recommendations that we right now are sitting on. So yes, we can give you at least a draft this weekend probably, Dr. Nicholson and I, along with input from Mr. Weaver and Mrs. Hurd around the numbers, to give you a sense of where we are coming in with the recommendations, again, around attritions, replacements, reallocations. Yeah, we can do that.
So a couple of things, just to piggyback on this. When I first started my career, this is when we actually started the budget process, which was in April, May, and June, and then it was done. Under Act One, we started in November now. So it's probably a good thing in this particular case.
Our district likes to give a lot of time to really be stressed out about the number.
It leads to many sleepless nights, I can attest to that. The other thing, Mrs. Lofton, is we have not yet forgotten about our conversation and our action in November or December when we actually moved some of the capital reserve and the general fund into the unassigned fund balance as well. That also may play a part in this process as well. Because I want it all. I want to be able to make sure that we have the best educational program, best fiscally responsible budget, and also build up some of those reserves.
Agreed. Yes. Let's do all three. Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So thank you for the conversation. So that's where we're at, and we have no intention of being there. We've got a lot of plates in the air that we got to bring forward, and the ARIP response, reaction and responses and all that kind of stuff has to be summarized and presented. And the next budget step, as Mrs. Lofton mentioned, we do have preliminary budget approval. It is a mandatory step for us to take. I've already advertised for it. And then the final budget approval in June. So 2 more steps, unless the board has need or feels the need to extend that a little bit. But typically we haven't. We've just kind of taken care of our business. The other major component of this, and we've been warned by PASBO and PSBA, is the state budget. So we're kind of not sure. We've already recognized those small increases because they said they're so small they'll never get changed. Well, last year at the very end, when they actually approved it in November, there was that extra little $50,000 that was associated with our Ready to Learn grant that we didn't know about. So will something like that come up that will help offset that? Unfortunately, if they don't take care of business before we have final budget approval, then it really doesn't help us, but we recognize that moving forward.
You excited, Judy? I think it might be. She gets real jazzed about this, Jim. It's like
Which is great. That's in our wheelhouse. We appreciate that. Okay, so as we move forward with the budget and we have all these discussions that are going on, we're trying to wrap up this year's budget and where we ended up, actuals to budget. So this is our first general fund projection on how we predict we're going to do for 25-26. The first column there is listed. That's our actual projection. We are projecting revenue of $136,931,000 based upon the numbers that we have been provided essentially through, well, the end of February, middle of March. all right? So now we've just started April, so those numbers now, we feel somewhat confident as far as where we've gotten 9/12 of the way through the year. Total expenditures, $138,041,041. And of course, we did have a $2 million transfer that we had just talked about from the capital reserve into the unassigned fund balance. All of that means that brings us down to what our estimated unassigned fund balance would be. Now, you look at where we started out with our budget. We had a $136 million budget. Our total revenue, we're projecting $136,931,000. So we're projecting a positive influence of $872,000. On the other hand, the expenditures, we're projecting that the total expenditures are $138 million, and we budgeted $137 million. And why that is because we have a number of grants that we're looking at. Essentially, the DCED grant that is putting in all the fire alarm panels, we received approval for that, but we don't budget for those. Those are neutral. So those are revenues up in the top on the revenue, and there are offsetting expenditures on the bottom part too. Altogether, it looks like we're just about breaking even at this point in time. When we did our initial look, Amy and I looked at that probably 3 weeks into March, we had hope. And then we recognized that all of our fixed contracts for energy were coming off of our commitments. And so now we're left out in the open market for our diesel fuel, literally. So that quickly ate up any kind of positive influence we may have had on the expenditure side of things. So that's conservative right now. Remember, Amy and I, when we do this, I do the revenues, Amy does the expenditures, and then we kind of come together and then we crossfire at each other to try to whittle away at each other's basis for their opinions. And we come to a general conclusion. We're conservative. This is our first look. And hopefully now, once we get into May and we look at that, we'll have April's numbers that get us 10/12 of the year in as far as projection goes. And so hopefully that will change a little bit towards the positive. But again, the energy is killing us right now from a projection standpoint. It's so tough to project normally coming off of that. However, with the fluctuations and looking at what we're being told and seeing every night about the impact on barrels of fuel and what that cost may be, and how diesel fuel is now over $5, and we were purchasing it at $2.23, and now we're out there on the market. That is hitting our projection pretty hard. So we're being very conservative with that. Okay, any questions on that? That will change. We'll give an update in May and June as well. Okay, there's some backup and some quick hitters there. And again, remember, this will change. All right, anything else? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you for incorporating that other slide, just in case.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Weaver, for your report. Item 5.02, approval of PV Woods projects. These are a request to approve the listed PV Woods projects, improvements to existing trails, installation of purple martin birdhouses, and digital scanning of all elementary buildings for future gardens. These projects are all funded through PV Woods and/or grants with no direct cost to the district. Is there any comments, questions, or concerns about this agenda item? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. I was just going to add for the board, at the Safety and Operations Committee meeting, there was an additional component to this action item, and that was to create a more extensive trail that would border East and some of the homes that are near East, adjacent to East. And I just want to call out for the board that that particular component in this action item has been pulled as we explore further some of the concerns that have been raised by parents about the placement of the trail. So we're working with the township and we're working with those parents. So more to come on that.
Residents.
Residents, not parents, excuse
Some of
me.
them might
I'm
be
sorry.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I just wanted-
That is an important clarification. It is some of our residents, community members, that reside adjacent to where this trail would be. So I just wanted to mention that. Thank you.
All right, so.
If I just have a question. Dr. Clune, in regards to the birdhouses, do you know what the construction of those birdhouses are? And the only reason I raised this concern, I just read a report that metal birdhouses and birdhouses with not enough ventilation actually can kill birds. So I was just curious.
Press it on. The birdhouses, the pole that it's set up on is constructed out of metal, and the actual birdhouses themselves are actually plastic, but they come from a Purple Martin support group that they've designed it. So they've used this particular design in lots of other places, and I mean, they tell me this is the way to go. Like, this particular birdhouse is very, very supportive of the Purple Martins.
So approved and certified by the birdhouse construction people.
There's a group just for Purple Martins, and it's international. And this is one of their chosen designs. They feel this is the way to go. Thank you for asking. I'm excited to see how successful it will be.
I love it. I think we should have t-shirts. I'm very excited about it.
It's already waiting in Mr. Marsh's office. Don't worry, we're ready to go. You get this approval, we're going to get it in the ground super fast, just in time for them arriving from Brazil.
And they don't
Thank you.
trees, so they need these birdhouses.
Apparently, yeah.
I'd say.
All right, so if there are no further comments, questions, or concerns, I guess we can move that to consent. Item 5.03, looks like we're being requested to take action on this tonight. This is the approval of 2 new digital scoreboards at the high school. This is a request to approve digital scoreboards to provide 2 LED scoreboards in our competition gymnasium. Recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
There's a motion by Dr. Weston and a second by Mr. McKinney. Are there any comments or questions? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Very good. Item 5.04, request the approval of the removal of asbestos tile. This is a request to approve Bristol Environmental to remove and dispose of 1,600 square feet of asbestos tile in the high school. Are there any questions or concerns about this agenda item? Seeing none, we can move that to consent. Item 5.05, approval of air monitoring during tile remediation. This is a request to approve environmental control systems in Broomall to provide air monitoring during the remediation phase of the asbestos tile removal. Any comments, questions, or concerns about this agenda item? Hearing none, we'll move that to consent. And then item 5.06, the approval of the installation of tile at the high school. This is a request to approve Franklin flooring to install 1,600 square feet of tile in the high school, presumably asbestos-free. Any comments, questions, or concerns about this agenda item? Seeing none, we can move that to consent. Items 5.07 and 5.08 are also both requested for action tonight. Item 5.07 is request to approve the replacement of chiller pumps at Schwenksville Elementary. And item 5.08 is a request to approve the replacement of the boiler at Skipback Elementary. The recommended action is a motion to approve both items, and I will make those motions.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second for both?
Second.
Mr. McKinney motions, seconds rather, for both of them. And are there any comments or questions about 07 or 08? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion's carry.
Very good. Item 5.09, approval of sponsor-to-sponsor agreement between PVSD and MCIU. This is a request to approve a sponsor-to-sponsor agreement between the Perkiomen Valley School District and the Montgomery County Intermediate Union to provide food services to the pre-K program at Middle School West, Head Start at Evergreen, and pre-K at Arrowhead Elementary School. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns about this agenda item? Seeing none, we'll move that to consent. Item 5.10, approval to purchase used passenger van. This is a request to approve the purchase of a used 2014 Dodge Caravan vehicle. Right.
Mr. Weaver, are you looking?
Any comments, questions, or concerns here?
Yeah, are you looking for approval for that this evening, or would you like to wait for next week?
Mr. Fabrizio?
Tonight, if possible.
Great.
There you go.
Want a motion?
Okay, if we're looking for approval this evening, the recommended action is a motion to approve, and I so move.
It is. We don't have to put it on consent, though. We can take action on it, can't we?
Well, did we advertise that we were going to take action on it tonight?
It's on the agenda for approval, so we're just.
It's not specified necessarily. It's not specified how our other items are.
It's not listed as something that you're looking for action for tonight, but if we want to take action,
I just felt.
Does the board have to, I agree, but does the board have to approve amending the agenda to do that? Technically, yes.
Okay. I don't have issue amending the agenda. Can I do that? I'll go ahead and make a motion to amend the agenda to take approval, to move this to an action item for this evening.
Yes. Someone second it.
Second.
Mrs. Lofton seconds. Are there any comments, questions, or issues with that? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Against? Okay, motion carries. So that'll be noted that we moved it to approve this evening and take action. And now, Dr. Weston.
very good. Items 5.11 and 5.
Wait,
What?
we got to go back. So you
Oh.
motioned for
Oh,
approval.
okay. Oh, okay. So now we're making the motion to approve the purchase. I will make the motion to approve the purchase of the used passenger van for mail runs.
Dr. Weston motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. McGuire seconds. Any comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries. Go ahead and buy that van up.
All right, now we'll do 5.11 and 5.12, which are both on consent. And then finally, 5.13 is the grants and donations report.
Okay, wonderful, Dr. Weston. That ends Section 5 business. Would you move on to Section 6, payment of bills?
I will happily move on to
Thank you.
Section 6, the payment of bills. Item 6.01, ratification of bills and payroll, and item 6.02, the approval of the treasurer's report, are both on the agenda for April 13th, and that concludes Section 6.
Dr. Weston, thank you so much for stepping in on that, and I appreciate all of your help with Section 5. Section 7, professional personnel, Mrs. Lofton.
Thank you, Mrs. White. Section 7.01 is the acceptance of resignations and retirements as listed. Motion to accept resignations and retirements.
So that's on consent.
Right, and that's on consent. Well, are there any questions?
Oh, are there any questions? I'm sorry.
Okay,
Great.
that's a list for that.
Congratulations to those folks. Yes,
That'll
absolutely.
be on consent. 7.02, the recommended action is a motion to approve the HRA for the ERIP participants and to authorize the district to make associated incentive payments in accordance with the terms of the agreement. Are there any questions? Okay, let's put that one on consent. 7.03 is also on consent. It's a request to approve the leaves of absence as listed. Are there any questions? No. Okay, we'll leave that on consent. There is a request for action tonight for the request to approve provisional employment of the following administrative personnel pending fulfillment of all statutory requirements, and I so move.
Mrs. Lofton motions. Is there a second?
Second.
Ms.
Okay.
Westfall seconds. All in are there any comments or
So yeah,
questions?
we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? Okay, oh, yeah, you do that part, sorry.
It's okay. You're good. All in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
Thank you, Mrs. White. 7.05 is also scheduled to be on consent. There is a motion to approve the 2026 ESY professional appointments. Are there any questions? Okay, 7.06 is a placeholder for next week in the event we have long-term or extended daily substitute appointments. And 7.07, also intended to be on consent, is the approval of spring coaches. Motion to ratify the appointment of spring coaches for the 2025-26 school year. Are there any questions here? Okay, Mrs. White, I will turn it back over to you.
Ms. Lofton, thank you so much. Section 8, support personnel, Mr. Williams. Super easy one for you. Go ahead.
Yep, thank you. Items 8.01 through 8.05 are all on consent, so I open up for any questions. No questions, and that ends my section. Ms. White, thank you.
Mr. Williams, excellent job there. Okay, Section 9, governance, Mr. McGuire.
Section 9.01, first reading on policies. The following policies are presented for first reading. Any questions on Section 9.01? Seeing none. 9.02, approve or to hold a second reading and adopt policies. This is a motion to hold a second reading and adopt policies is listed. Request approval to hold a second reading and adopt the following policies: 118, 151, 212, 219, 223, 224, and 625. Motion? Oh, comments or questions, sorry. Seeing none? Motion? Consent? And section 9.03 is on consent. And so ends my section.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. McGuire. That brings us to Section 10, closing items. 10.01, once again, the board affords the community an opportunity to make a comment on any topic for a duration of 3 minutes, and I open the floor. Seeing none, 10.02, board will open the table for comments or questions. Go ahead, Ms. Bridey.
Just with the middle school cheer moving forward, I'm really happy to see that happening. PV and one other district in the Pioneer Athletic Conference are the only two that don't currently offer middle school cheer, except for the one school that doesn't offer middle grades. But you know, we have seen a tremendous growth in cheerleading locally. We have two really strong youth cheer programs. So I did want to recognize, you know, those cheerleaders who have worked so hard and dedicated to themselves, to their sport, starting in kindergarten, as well as the parents, volunteers who help, you know, fuel those children's passion for their sports, and the parents who volunteered to help start the middle school cheer clubs that also helped to move this forward, and everyone who's put effort in behind the scenes. I just think it's really great that we're offering our students this opportunity. Cheer is a really rapidly growing sport. It's eligible to become an Olympic sport, and you could see it as soon as 2028. And there's a new professional cheer league. We watch cheer in my house like it's like March Madness. So just really happy to see that this, you know, item is moving forward, and thank everyone.
Thank you so much, Ms. Bridey. I agree. Go ahead, Dr. Russell.
Thank you, Ms. White, and thank you, Ms. Bridey. I too appreciate that we're moving that forward. I would just like to extend thanks to the board on behalf of the administrative team, really, for the special education supervisor position that you approved earlier than what is typical. We actually conducted the search and had a nice pool of candidates to consider and are really pleased with the individual that you approved this evening and excited for how that individual will contribute to our team and the effort. So as our enrollments decline, you're observing the special education population continues to increase. So we really support key resources like the one that you approved this evening. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Russell. And again, I extend thanks to the special education team as a whole. The presentation this evening was very well put together, very comprehensive, and very easy to follow and understand. So much thanks. Mr. McKinney, do you have anything?
I do. I'm just curious, a question for Mr. Weaver, Mr. Fabrizio. Have you done your due diligence on the amount of tile issues that we need to address? I'm just curious.
So, Joe, I got.
It's a joke, Mr. Weaver.
He's joking. He's joking.
So the big, really? Oh, okay.
Okay.
Are they asbestos?
Put the slides back.
All right. If we could just take the finance committee of the whole presentation from the top, I would like to see that again, actually. And maybe Mrs. Hurd could just.
No, she's kicking me. She's kicking me.
All right, all right. If anybody else around the table.
One serious thing. I'm gonna
For
say-
real serious?
Yes, serious.
All right.
That's all I'm about is
It's
being
9:19?
Okay, took 1 minute. No, I do want to say that for Dr. Russell, the award that she received last week or whatever was monumental in the sense that her body of work in the community was truly, truly like appreciated. And the citation for the reading at the awards was just a tip of the iceberg in regards to all that she had done or whatever. And I truly do appreciate all the folks who did come out from the district to represent. But it was no surprise that her and Mayor Ace had the biggest contingency of folks, there in the evening or whatever. But again, I want to say congratulations to you again, Dr. Russell, for a job well done.
Thank you.
Nice series. Thank you very much. That was very, very nice that Ursinus was able to offer that. Does anyone have anything else? Mr. Lees, Mr. Rapp, Mr. Ganesh, Mr. Moran? Do we have anything? Chief Miller? Okay, with that, I adjourn.